Yo guys, what's up? It's Air Force once again, and today it's FFL franchise ranking, but this time I added season 13 into consideration. So, as obviously, these were the teams that we will re rank, including the Cleveland Browns, Birmingham Bluebirds, Dallas Cowboys, Seattle Seahawks, Buffalo Bills, and New England Patriots. Now, this is a little bit interesting because none of these teams were ever. This is like they're all going to be reused, so this might affect the rankings a lot, depending on how well they did this season, and of course, how well they did their previous seasons and all that stuff. Now, obviously, these are the formats. I don't think this one will be applied. The ones used once won't be applied since every team, I believe, like all these teams now have made the playoffs at some point, so that won't matter. But what will matter is like this template. This will be like the most amount of templates you'll see. Discarding the one from the teams used three times, but that's the spot. That's besides the point. Yeah, all that stuff. But we're gonna start with the lowest team right now in the franchise rankings from season 13, and that will be the Buffalo Bills. Obviously, they had a somewhat alright season, the previous season, season 12, but it wasn't. I feel like they downgraded season 13. With a 1-4 record, they obviously had a combined record of 3-7. I just feel like P Man could execute with Taro Argentina, obviously without him. So it kind of shows like he kind of needs those viable receivers in order to play comfortably and all that stuff. And they don't really have as many facts as I did for season 12. But one thing to note is that they did drop from number 36 to number 42 in the franchise ranking. Up next, but they only have a few awards. Only one award, with P-Man winning RB running back of the year, and only like control Q and blocks being in the All Pro for season 13. Up next is the Dallas Cowboys. Obviously, they have a combined record of 4-6, as opposed to that, because obviously season 8 they went 1-4. Some reason this team always managed to score more than 40 points every game, and then they were the first team to claim a FFL forfeit win in the regular season. And we're not including season 1 on that because we all came to a consensus that we need just to start playoffs because the standings didn't matter. That's the difference between these two scenarios. So just in case anyone was about to ping me in the general chat and just say, "Oh, what about season 1 Chargers and all that stuff?" But one thing to didn't do know is that they rise from the franchise rankings from 41 to 37, because I do believe like there was improvement. They made it to the playoffs, obviously, but playoffs this year was a little wonky, no shit. But as you can see, they didn't win as much awards, so that's why they didn't move up in the rankings. And one of the awards being LVP for Fanta, but he did made the All Pro as a DE too, so that's something to keep note of. Up next, I got the New England Patriots. Now, my God, from a decent season for, brutal loss to the postseason, to 0-5 the next time they show up. This is the 8th team in FFL history to go 0-5. So obviously they have a combined record of 3-7. And this is probably the biggest drop on this list, including like the previous video I made about season 12. They dropped from 15th all the way to 35. Like I said, it takes one bad franchise to fuck up the entire rankings. But one thing to do note is that this franchise always won Kicker of the Year and made an All Pro as a kick returner, which is kind of hilarious. And as you can see, the roster wise, it wasn't as decent as season 4, so probably indication of why they went 0-5, but the accolades, they did have some good achievements as besides the Mickey Mouse Super Bowl MVP from Bijan. But I'll explain more of that later. But as you can see, obviously, Betts made kick returner and won the award. Season 13, Azrael did season 4, so that's why they won like kick returner every time. That's why I mentioned that in the facts. But yikes, what a downgrade. I'm sure Azrael's not gonna be happy about that. Up next, I got the Seattle Seahawks, currently at number 33. Overall, this wasn't it was an alright season for them. Nothing fancy, nothing exciting, nothing like noticeable and all this stuff. I do think season two Seahawks is better overall. It's the best team used by all that stuff, and obviously, they have a combined record of 6-8. They did have three, I would say, quote unquote, Mickey Mouse accolades, with the only legitimate one being Brand's Media of the Year. But obviously, but Eddie QB of the Year and all that stuff are kind of illegitimate. I'm not gonna lie, but that's about it. Up next, I got the Cleveland Browns, and they went from a 0-5 team to a undefeated team, just with the Zinga being there. And this is probably the biggest rise out of any of them, with going from number 48 to number 28. Hold on, give me one sec. I messed that up. Okay, there we go. Now it's fixed. I was fixing this one because it did say season 4. Whoops. Anyways, now I would have jumped them up a little bit more is the thing, but like like I said about the playoffs, it was a little wonky. We rushed it, didn't really play any games. So it was all forfeits, wins, forfeit losses, all that stuff. So do I still think they would have won the Super Bowl? Yes, I do. They really demolished, well, I was quote unquote demolished every team standing their way besides the Bluebirds. I do think that game would have been close, but the Browns would have been on top. Don't get me wrong. Oh shit, I also messed up again. Oh my god. Yeah, I guess you can tell it's a little bit of a rush making this video because I wanted to finish it before I head back, because last week was syllabus week, but whatever. And as you can see, they got a bunch of more accolades, with Bentley shining with him breaking the single season receiving yard record, all that stuff. And they have four positions in the All Pro area, but that's about it. And then the last team is the Birmingham Bluebirds. Not much to say besides the fact that Trey, myself, Turbo, and Gigi Boy has been on the roster. And the reason why I put an asterisk over Turbo and Gigi Boy was because they were traded season 8. So, but they still count because they were part of the team. And something to note is that this franchise never scored less than 55 points. They have a good combined record of 6-4, and they did rise from 28 to 25. And obviously, they maybe would have went up a little bit more. Especially if they put a respectable fight in the Super Bowl and only lost by maybe one possession. But I guess this is the best they'll do, because I feel like if they got blown out in the Super Bowl, maybe they would have jumped up a little bit less. Maybe they'll still be 28th and all that stuff. But nonetheless, they gain a lot more accolades, especially with Tina joining the roster. And I forgot to add this in the facts section. I probably will do that later. But oh damn, hold on, give me one sec. These are all wrong. These are supposed to say season 8, but it don't matter. I guess I made that mistake a long while ago. But anyways, now that we got that cleared up, they have won Sack Daddy of the Year, all that in the same whenever the franchise has been introduced and all that stuff. Just like the same situation with the Patriots, but it says Sack Daddy. But that's about it. Here are the new franchise rankings. This is where it will start with Birmingham being the new 25th, Cleveland being 28th, Seattle being 33rd, and then obviously you have New England Patriots with that big dip, Dallas Cowboys right there, Buffalo right there, and that's about it. That's gonna be it. Next up store is gonna be the FFL Trivia Part 2 answers, which I want to probably get done by Wednesday. It might depend on how many more responses I get, but if it is what it is, then I will go ahead and make that video sooner or later. But that's about it. Season 14 might take a little more while since I am getting back into college and all that stuff, but that's about it. I'll see you guys later.